Hello, and welcome to the Books That Make the World Better podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Browdy, and I'm so happy to have with me today Linda Kaye-Moses, the author
Hi.
of the new novel, The Argentera and the Tales of the Six Arabesques. And Linda is going to tell us about that intriguing title and how she came to write this book. So, welcome, Linda.
Hi.
So, why don't you start out by just telling us a little bit about your background and those beautiful jewels you're wearing and
Thank
how you
you.
came to write this book?
Um, my background for the past almost 50 years has been as a studio jeweler. And that means that I spent every day, every day possible in my studio making jewelry and doing shows, um, and making jewelry and then doing shows again and again and again. And it's been I feel very blessed that I've been able to do that because I love making jewelry and I love making jewelry that has stories to tell.
Mm.
Um, my jewels that I most love making are those that have tails. And and I think that that comes from my having been a writer for even longer than I've been a jeweler, because I've been writing since I was a child,
Mm-hmm.
on and off, but always wanting to write, always wanting to tell stories, always in love with language, um, both my language and the sound of other languages, because I'm not truly fluent in other languages. Although I speak a smattering of French and a smattering of Italian, and even less of Yiddish. So, um, but just the sound, um, the meanings behind the meanings of words,
Mm-hmm.
degree of language.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so
Yeah.
that's essentially my background. Other than, having loved gardening and knitting and crocheting and having two kids and being married.
That's a lot. That's
It's a
plenty.
lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. And
Sometimes it's too much.
this is your first novel that you've
Yes.
finished, or at least that you published in your many decades, right? So you have a lot of
Yes.
life sort of coming up behind this novel.
Yes, that's a good
Mhm.
way to talk about it too, because as I was writing it, I realized how many parts of my life I was drawing information from, not just looking up information, doing the research, but kind of researching the archives that are buried up here in the brain that never
Mhm.
go away. They're always there. You just need to know which drawer to pull out and which file to pull out of the drawer and use it. So it's been a lovely, lovely voyage writing this novel.
Okay, so let's not leave our listeners in suspense. Why don't you tell us what the novel is about, if you can encapsulate a huge canvas? Yes.
Here's a picture of it too.
There's the cover. Mm-hmm.
Very happy with the cover. So let's talk about the title for a minute. The Argentera is a reference to one of the characters in the novel, and she is a goldsmith, a silversmith, actually. But the term goldsmith is the umbrella term for the people who do what she does and what I do.
In what period of time?
In the 1300s,
Right.
1349 to be exact. Um, and the name actually refers to the Italian word for silver.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes place, she lives in Alsace and also in Milano and in Venezia. And the Tales of the Six Arabesques refers to a necklace that's described by her father, who is also a goldsmith, in a journal. And the interpretation of the designs by a contemporary goldsmith in the book is that they resemble arabesque forms. Now, the word arabesque has a number of meanings. It's a musical term, it's a dance term, but in this book, it is primarily referencing the parts of this necklace that the Argentera's father has designed. The journal is found by this contemporary goldsmith, and she is determined to understand who designed the necklace and what happened to it because it's lost. And
Hmm.
that's the whole storyline, the general storyline that threads through the entire novel. Although there are a lot of storylines in the novel.
Right.
One of them takes place in 450, 470 BCE, and the next one in 1349 CE, and the next one in Venice of the same century, 1300s, and the next one in Venice in 1920s, and the next one in the Berkshires in Massachusetts.
Where you live.
Yes, and some
Yes.
of them in Manhattan, where I don't live. I haven't lived since I was 9. So,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Yeah. Yes. No, it's quite a broad canvas and a complex tapestry that you're weaving with a lot of characters. And I know there are you have a few glossaries in the
I
book, in the back
do.
of the book to keep it all straight. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that it's almost unforgivable if you're using other languages, um, not to have a glossary available for your readers. I know that when I'm reading a book that has different languages in it, I like to go to the back of the book and see if there's a glossary so that I can better understand what the author is trying to tell me.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
So
also because I love language so much, I really want to know.
yeah. And it's mostly Italian, right? In this book.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
few other words as well from other languages, but mostly Italian. Yeah, there's
Mhm.
some.
Some Yiddish. Yeah.
My favorite grandmother's my the only grandmother I knew actually, her favorite expression when I was misbehaving was geschlag no schlag je Koppenwand, which means go bang your own head against the wall.
How endearing.
Oh, it's a
Yeah.
Yiddish curse. She essentially was saying, "Don't bother me with this. Go
Yeah.
bang your own head against the wall." So it's evocative, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure the loving tone was everything.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, she was a wonderful grandmother. Um, so there are a lot of relationships in the book. There are family relationships, a very large Italian family, traced through several centuries, 3 or 4 centuries. Um,
Hmm.
it was interesting for me to have the different timelines and to work them out appropriately because I'm calculolexic. I don't do numbers well. So I had to
Me
write them
too.
out like 4 or 5 times, see them in front of me, know where I had messed up, and then corrected them, of course.
Well,
Hopefully I
also when you're counting from BC and then
yeah, that's a
AD,
mess.
it's
But
confusing.
I did have a beta reader of the novel, and he pointed out to me that I had it all backwards, the BCE numbers. They
Yeah.
were all they were all wrong. So I had to fix those.
Yeah. So the furthest back storyline is about the cloth, right?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
You want to talk about that a little bit?
sure, sure. That storyline, the main character is a weaver who lived in the 400s, 472 BCE, in northern India, north central India. And she was very young when she was essentially kidnapped and brought to Susha, which was the capital of the ancient Persian Empire.
Mhm.
And she was brought there as to become a concubine. But she continued her weaving. Her weaving was her heart and soul. And she resolved while she was there that she would never stop weaving because it connected her to the village from where she had been taken, and to what was most important for her maintaining her own balance within the harem in Susha. And she continued to weave throughout her life after she left Susha and she was able to leave. I don't want to give too much away,
Hmm.
uh, but she did continue to weave. And during the period of time as she grew older, she she wove practical things for where she was living, but she also continued to weave a long length of linen that at one point um, was a remnant was found by an ancestor of the goldsmith from Alsace who preserved it because
Hmm.
of the way he had found it. And this remnant triggered part of the search that our contemporary goldsmith went on to find out what had happened to the necklace, and why within the journal there was this small piece of hand-woven linen. Um,
Hmm.
Her search is quite intricate and persistent. Her name is Miriam. I happen to love that name. I think it has a sound to it that is very fluid, and I loved giving her that name and being able to use that name. And of course, Miriam as a matriarch in the Tanakh and the Jewish Bibles.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. So Miriam finds the journal from the 1300s, right?
Yes,
In
yes,
in the US, contemporary US, and this
yes,
sets off her hunt to figure out what that journal is all about, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
She,
the
the
journal, the necklace, remind me here because this is such an intricate story that
Yeah,
so
thank you.
that
I hope so.
the necklace does still exist. Yeah, it does, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's
Well,
hunting for this necklace.
the interesting thing that happened when I started describing the necklace, started writing about the necklace
Yeah.
that this 14th century goldsmith was designing in his journal, I felt compelled to make the necklace. I I would not keep writing about it without making it. So I went into my studio and I spent several weeks making this necklace and was really happy with it. Took it to my next show and it immediately sold.
Mm.
Oh, it's in a private collection. I can't, I put on a piece of jewelry today so that I had jewelry on, but I can't wear my necklace because it's out there being worn by someone who is very excited about the book. She can't wait to see it. And I'll bring it with me to my November show to show a tour and hopefully sell her a copy of it. But
Mm-hmm.
um, so I should just hold up this book again. I
Mm-hmm.
think you can see the
Mm-hmm.
necklace on the cover. And it has six arabesques. It has six pendants on it.
That necklace on the cover is the one you made
The
inside
actual
about the book.
necklace.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I really miss it. It's one of, I mean, I love making my pieces. I love it when other people own them. But this one, I really was shocked that it sold so fast because I really had not had enough time living with it
Mm.
and loving it. And I didn't think it was going to sell right away, but it did. It
Huh.
did.
Would you make another one? Something similar?
Nope,
No.
nope, no. One of a kind.
Mm.
One of a kind.
Well,
The forms on the necklace are um, I I I make them by carving printing plates to press the metal into. and I have those forms. I can use the same forms again,
Hmm.
but there will never be anything that is even close to what
Right.
this necklace is. I could make individual pendants, and I would feel comfortable doing that. I could make earrings or
Hmm.
rings,
Hmm.
uh, but nothing that would resemble the necklace that I have already made. And I
Hmm.
only make one-time pieces anyway, so.
So this November show, is that would that be your next show that people could find your work at, or?
Yeah, it's in Marlborough, Mass. It's run by Paradise City Arts Festival, and it's the only show that we do. We do it in March and we do it in November.
Ah.
And so yes, they could come in, and they can certainly contact me through my website to be put on my mailing list. My website's lindakaymoses.com.
Hmm.
Uh, it's easy enough to reach me that way, or just go to Paradise City Arts Festival and they'll have the information for the dates of the show and the hours, etc.,
Hmm.
and location. Right.
Right. And I'll put your website in the show notes here.
Great.
Um, so let's talk for a minute about your process as a writer. And I'm curious about whether it has anything, whether there's any relation to the way you write and the way you make jewelry. Like, are those
There,
related at all?
yeah, they absolutely do. Now, let's start with the jewelry. My jewelry primarily will start with a shape that I like and a particular stone that I want to include, or the colors of the enamels I want to use. So if you think of those things as analogous to words,
Mm-hmm.
the process is very similar. Generally, I'm inspired by the stones, by the metals, by shapes, by colors. Um, in writing, the inspiration usually comes from, remember I mentioned the drawers in my brain where you have files that you haven't accessed in a while.
Mm-hmm.
There was let's talk about the Argentera for a minute. Um, there was a hoard of precious objects, silver objects found in, excuse me, in Colmar in the Alsace, inside a wall that it was a building that was being demolished, and these pieces, these beautiful silver pieces, had been hidden in the wall in the Jewish district in Colmar. Now, in 1349, it was the time of the Black Death. So any Jew living anywhere in Western Europe was being blamed for the plague
Mm.
and were either being murdered or forcibly baptized or burned at the stake, or many Jews um, made the awful decision to destroy themselves and their families before they could be baptized. So it was a terrible time. And so this particular silversmith hid all of these objects to hoping to be able to come back, but never was able to come back and retrieve them.
And this is true. This is not fiction. Yes.
This is true, not fiction.
Mm-hmm.
There were there were two towns. I think the other town was called Ifrut, but don't quote me on that. But the town that I was most familiar with was Colmar. So I based the town where my goldsmith lived on the episode in the life of this silversmith in Colmar and his need to protect his family during this terrible, difficult, horrific time for everyone. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
uh, half the population of Europe died from the plague, um, and so many of the Jews living in Europe at the time were were destroyed by not just the plague, but the side effects. So that's the beginning of the story of the journal itself.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an inspiration.
So
That,
that, so in comparing that to the jewelry making process, that would be like the stone or the
Mhm,
color that
mhm,
that
yeah,
set you off. Yeah.
the words, the
Hmm.
words, the history. Um, all of my jewelry has stories, but my stories have stories.
Mm,
My stories, um, uh, beginning with that history of Colmar and the Colmar treasure. Then there was a show at the Clark Art Institute in Williamstown, Mass, called Arabesque.
mm,
Of course, I went to that show. Now, when I was a kid, I was a dancer, so and I studied, of course, ballet. As what's the phrase? Everything's beautiful at the ballet. Girls
hmm.
like ballet. And there's a posture, arabesque.
Hmm.
That's part of warm-up exercise. And I always loved the word, but I never paid attention as a child to what the word actually meant or the history of it. And then the Clark's exhibition reminded me that, yeah, in that file drawer was the time when I was a dancer and there was this term. And the I then looked up the roots of the word, and of course it means like Arabic designs.
Mm,
And still, it was the sound of the word that I loved as well. So that's where the subtitle of of the book is The Tales of the Six Arabesques, referring to the forms of the pendants on the necklace that this goldsmith had designed. And in that period of time, we don't tend to think that there's a lot of interaction between Southern Europe and Eastern Europe and Western Europe and Northern Europe. We don't think that way, but there was an incredible amount of trade going on.
mm,
And most of it, a primary amount of it, was coming out of Venice. Venice was the trade capital at that point in time, and did a lot of trading with the Levant, with the Arab, what were the Arab nations at that time. And so a lot of the designs that immigrated throughout Europe came from the Middle East
mhm,
and were Arabesque-ish, if there is such a word.
mhm, mhm.
So
Yeah. So you did a lot of research, right? You've been to Venice. Have you?
I have been to Venice. When I arrived in Venice, I felt like I was coming home. It
Mm,
was the strangest feeling. And it started from the minute I put my foot on the island of San Marco where we were going to be staying. I suddenly felt like I was home. Now, I don't really have an in-depth understanding of what it's like to live in Venice
mhm,
because I never have. I was there for 2 weeks in my life,
mhm,
but that whole time I felt like I had been there before. And
mhm,
I have no way to explain that except I feel like I must have had an experience with Venice at some point. I don't
mhm,
necessarily believe in other lives, but there was a feeling and it was very deep. And so I wanted to, um, I had to cite some of my book in this wonderful, miraculous Venice.
Yeah, and you describe it beautifully. I mean, I haven't yet been to Venice myself, but of course everybody has seen many pictures of Venice, and I feel like
The
I've
pictures don't do it right.
yeah, but your descriptions were really very, very vivid. Like I felt like I
Oh,
was there. Yeah.
thank you. I hoped to make it seem when one of the characters sails for the first time to Venice, I wanted the
Mhm,
mystery of what was going to appear in front of her eyes as she arrived, but
mhm,
not until she got there because I wanted the mists of the lagoon to surprise her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, as
Mm-hmm.
they surprised me.
Yeah. And then you have Venice in different time periods. And I
Yes.
guess there's something really timeless about Venice, right? And it kind of lives as almost as another character in your novel, this
It,
place.
yes, it felt that way to me. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It is a character. It,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it is definitely a character. It's a monument, really. So much of it is so ancient, um, and some of it is not quite so ancient. Um, it's been there. People have been living on those islands forever,
Mm-hmm.
and building and building and building, not stopping. It's it is a marvel.
Mm-hmm.
It's and I'm happy that that my writing evoked some of that for you as you read through it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it really did. And then, of course, the Berkshire landscape I am very familiar with, and
Yes, you are.
also I could really recognize that. You did a great job at bringing us to the Berkshires with you as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I have loved the Berkshires for a long time. I've had family here for since the 1950s, and always loved being in these hills.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there's something about the Berkshires that is very supportive of artists,
Yes.
and and so artists sense things because of their sensibilities and their sensitivities.
Mm-hmm.
They sense something in various locations on the planet. One of them is Venice.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is the Berkshires. In Great Britain, they call them ley lines,
Mm-hmm.
where there is so much energy, for want of a better word, that artists sense it.
Mm-hmm.
So artists have been coming to the Berkshires forever and ever.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and
Yes.
I think are the indigenous natives who were here, the the Indians, for want of a better word, uh, they knew how marvelous this place can be.
Mm-hmm. The
Some of it
Mohican.
has to do with water. Some of it has to do with
I
water.
think it has, well, water, but I think it also has to do with stone. So
With
I think there's a lot of quartz in the Berkshires, in the boulders of the Berkshires, and
There's a lot of granite and a lot of quartz.
yes, and I think that it conducts frequencies, it conducts energy, and
Yes, it does. That's right. I had forgotten about that. And it's interesting that you pointed out because the underlayment of this house, when you dig anywhere on the property,
mm,
quartz comes up,
yes,
lots of quartz. That wasn't true when we lived in Pittsfield,
hmm
even though we were living near the Housatonic River.
hmm
Um, there was no quartz in the ground, but there's a lot of quartz here.
yeah, yeah. At my parents' house in Hillsdale, also full of pure white rocks that are quartz. Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. So I do think artists are perceptive and respond to those frequencies. Yeah, and
Mostly not even aware
hmm
that that's the reason they're here and why they're planted here.
hmm
And actually, um, it's not just the quartz. I really believe it's our beautiful Housatonic River.
hmm
So many artists living as close to the Housatonic as they can get without suffering floods or PCB contamination
Yeah,
or
right. Yes.
but the river is a beautiful river,
hmm
and I really feel a connection to water. I know you do. Um, I, I live next to a wetlands right now, but there's a brook right across from where we live, and it's fortuitous really because we chose for the house, not the brook, because it's not
hmm
ours. But but there it is, and it's very comforting for me when the windows finally get opened in the spring and I can hear the brook.
Yes, absolutely. I live only 2 blocks from the Housatonic in the town of Housatonic in Great
Yeah.
Barrington. So I know what you mean. Yeah. But so the book kind of winds up in the Berkshires, and I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about um the horses and the carousel, which is, it's a wonderful and maybe often hidden part of the Berkshires that people don't find.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there is a carousel in Pittsfield.
Right.
It's not where I located it
Mm-hmm.
in the novel, but it is a beautiful presence in Pittsfield. It was all of the horses were carved by volunteers and painted by volunteers, sometimes the same volunteer, but not necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the land was donated by a former resident of Pittsfield, and he contributed, I believe he contributed assistance in building the outer support for the carousel. It's a beautiful carousel.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted it sited on the Commons because the Commons is a park. This carousel in Pittsfield is not in a park. But I especially wanted to do that because my first 9 years I lived in Manhattan, very close to the carousel in Central Park.
Mm-hmm.
It, you know, that's a carousel in my heart. So I wanted the carousel in my novel to also be in a park in a very nice location in the Commons in
Mm-hmm.
Pittsfield.
Mm-hmm. With a view of the beautiful mountains.
Yep,
Yeah.
which you don't necessarily have in the Commons.
I
It
know.
looks a little every once in a while if it's not foggy or misty and or raining or there's not a tree in the way, you might see a little bit of Pittsfield State Forest. I You can't really see Mount Greylock from the Commons, but then this is not the Commons. This is my Commons.
Right.
So it's a fictional Commons and a fictional carousel sited there.
Right.
Uh,
And you had
and
it seems like you had fun with, using fictional techniques to create your own little magical world there.
yeah, isn't that what writing is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I I loved the idea of the clues being on a carousel. What
Yeah.
a joyous thing that was for me to discover in my own brain and heart, right? That was where the solution starts to happen.
So
Where
this gets to your writing process. So you did not plot this all out in advance, right?
I yeah, in a sense I did. Very skeletal outlines of um the journal, of course, the treasure that had at some point to be found, right?
Mm-hmm. It's a
Um,
mystery. Yeah.
it's a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I knew that I wanted the introductory character, the central character, Miriam, to be a goldsmith. Um, you know, they say as a writer, write what you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know goldsmithing.
Mm-hmm.
Miriam wanted Miriam, but I wanted also that contact with the goldsmith's journal, that she would understand the pieces that were designed in that journal, she that were described. She would she would get it, and it would trigger this search of hers, this traveling through time that she had to not literally do, but in her investigation to travel through time and figure out um, what had happened to the necklace itself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I wanted the necklace to be made. I didn't want it just to reside on the pages of the Goldsmith's journal. So that was part of my skeletal outline. Who was going to make it? How was that going to happen? How was the journal going to survive? And as I kept asking these questions of myself, I kept fleshing it out and adding the meat to the bones, so to speak, of my skeletal outline.
And this took a long time, right?
Yeah, it took from concept to publishing 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
10 years.
Mm-hmm.
As I started writing before COVID, well before COVID, and then COVID, of course, afforded all of us artists even more time in our studio spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked on it then, and then contacted you after that, well after that, to when I had finally at first to give you a chance to look through it and see if it was something that would interest you, and then polished it and polished it and polished it
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
until it was ready for prime time.
Yeah. And it was, I mean, about a year ago or so, I read The Weight of Ink, and that made me think of you. And that prompted me to just reach out and ask you, how is the book coming? Because I remember that book vividly. And it was over years that I was aware you were working on it.
Yeah,
So,
and that was so interesting when you contacted me, and mentioned that we could go see the author of The Weight of Ink,
mhm.
and hear her talk. And I thought, wait a minute, that name sounds so familiar, but I can't remember if I've read it. But I knew the name.
Yeah.
And I thought, all right, I better order this before I go hear her speak. And then I started looking on my bookshelves because it was nagging at me. And sure enough, I had been given the book by my daughter-in-law. She had not read it. Somebody had given it to her, and she read about it, and she thought I would love it. So
Hmm.
she just sent it on to me. I started reading it, and of course fell in love with it. But every 10 pages or so, rose petals were falling out of the book. Somebody had pressed rose petals in them,
Mm-hmm.
and my lap was full of rose petals as I was reading, and I saved them. I still have them. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but um, it felt, as they say, it felt like a sign.
Yes.
And then going with you to hear her speak um, was I was blown away by both the book and by what she had to say. And one of the things that she mentioned very briefly was how sad she was when she finished the book because she no longer had her characters to talk with. She was no longer
Right.
carrying on conversations with her characters. And
Mhm.
so during the Q&A, I asked her if she could expand on that a little bit because that really resonated. I felt like violin strings were vibrating in my body when she said that because I felt so engaged in conversations with my characters.
Mhm.
And when I finished, you can ask Evan if you don't believe me. I just wept.
Mm.
When I finished writing, I just wept because I had to say goodbye. We're done.
Yes, but you're still writing, right? You're writing
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, before I logged onto Zoom, I was working on some back matter for a novel that I've been working on.
Hmm.
It's called The Utopia Parkway Chronicles.
Utopia Parkway. Yeah.
Yeah, you caught that, right? Yes, there is a real Utopia Parkway. There's also the Utopia Parkway of my novel, which is a place of magical realism. And
Mm.
it's completely different from the Argentera. Um, it is based on a friend of mine that I had really beloved friend when I was a kid, all through high school and through college, and even
Hmm.
afterwards. And she had started out as a friend of my mother's, but um, she was a really close friend of mine. She, she was incredibly supportive of my creativity and had a huge influence on my life as a creative.
Hmm.
Um, really a magical person in herself, and she appears in the book as one of the main characters, as does the parkway itself.
Huh.
So,
So she was like a creative mentor for you.
yes, she was. She
Mhm.
was. She was a really loving friend. And she lived in a house that had been built in the 1700s. Now, that's even at that period of time, that was unusual in Jamaica, in Queens, um, to have a house that old still standing, but
Yeah.
it was. And she literally belonged in that house. And she was just someone who belonged to the same temple that my mother belonged to. And she was just this rare being
Hmm.
who could live in the world of the Jewish community in Jamaica States, and also in this world that she created for herself.
Hmm.
She was lovely, and she probably was maybe 5 foot tall. She was,
I'm
she had
5 foot
all those
tall. I know
power
about
bred
that.
into this wonderful body. Anyway, so she is a central character, but so is the Parkway.
Hmm. Well, I
And
look forward to meeting her in the book.
you will meet her soon, I think.
Yeah. And magical realism is wonderful and we need more of it, I think. You know?
Yes, we do. The ability to accept it, to
Mm.
accept it. I mean, there are people who will pick up an Alice Hoffman book, for example, and not get it, not
Mm.
get, not what, like what's going on there. I don't get it. And then there are the people who say, "Oh yeah, that's what's happening."
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I feel about magical realism. Some people get it, some people don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and some people resist it. Um, I think many people outgrow the acceptance of magical realism.
Right. Right. Well, like this little anecdote you just told about the rose petals falling out of the book when you
Yes,
found it.
yes,
Yeah.
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 I have no idea what I'm going to do with it.
I
It'll
don't
surface.
know.
It's a book cabinet.
Yeah, I think
There's.
that has to come in
Would you
somewhere.
like to see them? Would you
Yeah,
like to see them?
sure.
Hang on. Yeah, keep them on my desk. Let's see where they are. I think I have them right here. Oh, I don't know where they are.
There, you put them in an envelope.
Yeah, I put them in an envelope, but it's not this envelope. Oops. Nope, I don't know where they are.
Were they red?
They were. They were red rose
They're
petals.
red. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I had them there, but I must have stored them somewhere safer than on my desk.
Well, this necklace you're wearing sort of has, well, is it peacock feathers or is it
No, it's
a
you
bud,
can
a flower?
so you can see it up close. Let's see if I can do that. So this has a story.
Mm, wow.
I had
Beautiful.
I thank you. I had done a memoir before I had a chance to talk with you about it. I had done this memoir and so published it, and I had handwritten it on very large watercolor paper and illuminated all the letters in it,
Mm,
and had designs within the illuminated letters that took up a third of a page. Um, and I didn't know what to do with this book, and then published it and sold it to some of my collectors, my jewelry collectors. And some of them came back to me and said, that looks like a pendant. you should make a pendant that that's not just in a book, but it looks like a piece of your jewelry.
Mm.
Never occurred to me. I had not seen it. I needed the people who could see my work and respond to my work to be able to see that, yeah, those are pendants. So I picked 10 of the designs and I made 10 pendants. And this was one of them. And this was in a chapter that talked about my mother,
Mm.
talked about mixed messages, because my mother delivered a lot of mixed messages. Um, and so I still have this pendant. This will be mine, has been and will be. Um, and then I realized that I had spent a lot of money making these 10 pendants because they're sterling silver, fine silver, a little bit of 14 karat or 18 karat gold, and stones. And I needed to try and recoup that, not just from selling the pieces, but also so that I could continue to make jewelry.
Hmm.
So I did a crowdfunding campaign. I did an Indiegogo campaign, and I recouped all the money, which was astonishing to me and exhausting. It's not an easy process.
Mm.
Um, so that's the story of the necklace that I'm wearing. It's all enamels and fun things.
It looks like that, the third eye,
Yeah,
the Egyptian third eye. Yeah.
I'll tell you, one of the pieces, and I can't remember what chapter it was from, but one of the pieces, my collectors, and it still hasn't sold, but one of my collectors, a number of my collectors said to me, and people who just would come by the booth, women, all women, and they said to me, that's a uterus and fallopian tubes. The first one who said that to me, I said, oh my God. So that piece I put in my booth and I put a little note that says that the profits are all going to go to a not-for-profit organization that supports women's reproductive health.
Mm.
It hasn't sold yet. Come to my show in March,
Hmm.
and it will probably still be there.
Yeah.
You know, that's a hard thing to wear on your neck, uterus and fallopian tubes, but it's so obvious, and I never realized.
Takes the right person to wear it. Yes.
But
Uh,
that's another one of the pieces that's based on one of the designs in the memoir.
in the memoir. Hmm.
But
Yeah.
all my
That
pieces stories.
that also takes us back around to uh I wanted to point out that this book really celebrates strong women. I mean,
Yeah,
that's part of
yeah,
why I think it's a book that makes the world better because the women in it are so prominent and so strong. And
yes.
I think,
And they're not, how to say it? They're not in your face strong, except the Argentera occasionally approaches that. They're just, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is who I choose to be.
mhm,
And the hell with you if you don't get it. Although they don't say it that way, they just keep on going.
mhm. And you have a lot of really good men in the book too.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, the
Or
book is,
or men who become good, right?
yeah. I mean,
I'm
I,
thinking of Salvador, who, you know, has a misstep and then he finds his way back.
mhm, yes. And that's important. I think that's important because everybody makes mistakes sometimes, and we need to be able to find our way back.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
It's good we can have a consciousness about that. Um, Sometimes that walk back is not a conscious effort necessarily.
mhm,
It's hard to learn if it's not a conscious effort, right?
yeah. But the stories that we tell about it can be teaching stories.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really There are hard stories to tell. I don't want to be the one to tell hard stories. I want to
Mm,
tell, and I don't mean easy stories as the opposite of hard stories. I want to tell stories that do make the world better, that do plumb um, emotions and sensibilities that are more positive. And
mm,
I'm not I'm relatively naive. I have to admit that, but I'm not a Pollyanna. I don't believe um, everything's going to be fine. It's not who I am. I believe in the possibility of everything being fine. So I think there's a difference.
yeah, well, the book also reminds us that the arc of history is long, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
very much so. Certainly that small piece of linen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we are all caught up. I think, each of you show how each of your characters are all caught up in their present moment, but they're also part of this much longer arc of history.
They're all woven together.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
want the reader to understand that. That's one
Mm-hmm.
of the main things I wanted the reader to know,
Yeah.
that that connection.
Yes. And so for me, I find that comforting to think about the future and, that whatever messes we're in the present do sort of work themselves out as human beings move forward. And, you know,
Yes, I believe in that. I believe we are going forward.
mm-hmm,
But there was a joke during the last campaign about Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, that it was Kamala's campaign was two was a waltz, two
mm,
steps forward, one step back.
mm. Oh, I didn't hear that.
I
Yeah.
don't I don't know where I heard it, so I can't give you the source for it, but it was we do as human beings, as a species on the planet, we tend to progress towards the potential of our species,
Mm-hmm,
and then we backslide a little bit. That's the same thing with our country right now. I don't
mm-hmm.
want to go there.
No. And
In in
yeah.
the in the Utopia Parkway Tales, there is a character that is inanimate. Well, not really. It's a wisteria vine, and it's the thread through almost every one of the tales in that book. So
Mm,
a
hmm,
little a little nibble.
cool. I love wisteria. Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
too. It's pretty invasive, but I love it anyway.
Well, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I think your book is frothy is a word I would use for it. I mean, it's really entertaining and just
Oh, I'm so
immersive.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I'm glad it was for you. The feedback I'm getting from people who have ordered the book for me, or who have ordered it elsewhere, um, is that they're loving it. They can't. They're sorry that they're tired and they have to put it down
Yeah.
and want to finish it. That is lovely. That's lovely.
Yes, that's what
I'm,
every writer wants to hear.
yeah, I want to
Exactly.
hear that. Yeah, I'm excited, and I'm also excited. I sent some information to New England Public Media, and they're going to include it in their culture to do sections that they send, their newsletters that they send out. So I've got a lot of readings scheduled, and I did a great bookmark.
Ooh, beautiful. Yes.
We took one
Yeah.
of the pieces from the necklace
Uh-huh.
and included it on there. Yeah. So everybody who orders the book from me signed gets a bookmark too.
Ah, okay. So you
And
have
we
some
that.
signed copies. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking this time to share about the book and about your work and all your inspiring, endeavors for a long time. It's really inspiring to see somebody with such dedication who just keeps showing up for this creative work.
Yeah, it's just a compulsion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I
No.
am I'm delighted to talk about my book. Well, what author would not be?
Right.
So, thank you.
All right. So till next time.
Yes, let me know when you're back on the continent.